But it's only really now where I can easily say that all the banks across the board are really investing a lot of money, time, and resources in these technologies, and blockchain is one of them. So to answer your question, look, so I only realized this 9 months ago, and I can tell you right now that it's really picking up. Like it's the next big thing right now, and people might put it on brush under the carpet and say, look, it's all sounds too good to be true or something. Like I said, there's naturally an inclination to associate with Bitcoin, and I would say just do your own research. Look at the underlying technologies. This is not cryptocurrencies we're talking about. I'm talking about implementing or leveraging the underlying blockchain technology to help reduce costs.
Syed Shah is a business change lead for the APAC region in a global investment bank. Syed brings 12 years of experience in the London's financial industry, and he helps the investment bank frontline systems run smoothly by managing change projects and collaborating across technology functions. Syed is interested in career advice for young people, especially for those who are starting out their careers nowadays. Syed, I'm so glad that you could join me in this podcast today, and thanks for joining me in this show.
And thanks, Andrew, for having me. So I'm glad that we finally managed to get together and stuff, and we finally managed to get this recorded. So happy to be along.
Yeah, no, I'm glad because I actually met you. We both work in the same firm, and I'm glad I met you at a networking event. And I was just casually sharing on top of what I'm doing in my day job that I'm having this podcast where I'm very passionate to have conversations with business leaders in the industry. And the fact that I get a lot of this good advice makes me want to share them in a podcast. And I'm so glad that you agreed to do this with me. And I know you've been very busy, so thank you so much for making time today.
You're welcome. It all started with it all started with that mic of yours. If you remember, I asked you specifically, what do you do with that mic of yours? And you mentioned that I recorded a podcast. So that's how it all started. But happy to be here.
Awesome. So why don't we start off by, Syed, for you to share with us a bit about where you come from. You spent 12 years in London, working in London, and then how many years did you work in Singapore?
Sure. So I came to Singapore about 3 years ago. Like you said, spent about 12 years within the financial services industry. Mainly working for investment banks, so I've been here for the last 3 years working for a wealth management firm, a global wealth management firm. My specific job, or what I do on a day-to-day basis, is mainly to do with program management. So I'm a program manager by profession, and that's what I've been sort of primarily doing over the course of the last 15 years within technology. To be specific, and maybe I spent a year or two within operations as well. So I started off as a developer with Citibank, or Citigroup as it was known back in the days, and worked my way up towards being a project lead and then project manager to being the change lead here in Singapore.
Well, what would you say is the most important? What are the most important things that helped you to progress in your career, especially while you were working in London? And then how did you end up coming to Singapore?
Okay, that's okay. It's that's a good question actually. My career actually started off through a summer internship. I don't think we discussed this in our one-to-one chat, but it actually started off with a summer internship with JP Morgan that I did back in 2004, if I recall correctly. Again, it was there's a story behind it as well. It's an interesting story behind it. But just for the purpose of this session and for people who are listening in, it actually started with me applying for a number of summer internships during the course of my summer at university. and I kept getting rejected in quite a few of them, and so to the point that I I managed to get an interview with JP Morgan, and just the night before the interview, I was speaking to a few of my friends, and I just told them that I wasn't going to I wasn't planning on going to the interview because I'm so I'm just not getting a good vibe for it. And then the next thing you know, one of my friend comes along and he says that there are a lot of people in your position who wish they could swap their shoes with you and stuff and be able to sort of go to these interviews. I think you should give it a stab. And I still remember it was midnight, the night before the actual interview. I decided to take his word for it, and the next thing you know, I went for the interview and I got the job. And that's how my sort of career within investment banking started. It actually started with that internship. I spent 3 months in London. Then subsequently, I managed to land on a graduate scheme with Citigroup, working as a developer. And then I spent 5 years with Citigroup before I moved over to CME Group, which is a global exchange and stuff, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, to be specific. Spent a good 5 years with them. Then spent 2 years with Goldman Sachs within an operations lead capacity. So you know how I mentioned that I've primarily been working within technology. Goldman's was probably my opportunity to work, get my foot in on the operations side of things. Again, working mainly as a project manager, program manager. And then that was when I sort of decided to sort of apply for a wealth management firm, and that's how I got my I landed this specific position working within the initially within the wealth management side of things to begin with, but then slowly moving into investment banking. I started off within the wealth management and gradually moved into investment banking. So, and again, spent just over a year in London before this opportunity in APAC came along. It was again similar to what I was doing back in London actually, but there was a need for someone to come in and manage this change team within Singapore, and that's how I came here basically. And so this is like a very condensed version of the 15 years and stuff, 15 years of my career. But I mean, I think I'll probably say that I mean, my sort of what really got me into the investment bank was the fact that I persisted. And, I think that's probably one attribute that people don't take it for granted. Persistence is really important, and then comes the hard work, which goes alongside it. So I think the fact that I persisted throughout my career within the investment banks, make sure that I made sure that I worked hard for some of these positions and stuff. So that's what's got me where I am essentially. Yeah.
Well, very nice. So at a point in time when you applied, was it 2000, when you applied for the JP Morgan internship, was it 2005, 6, 7 or
2004, summer of 2004. So it was, I mean, JP Morgan was just one of the investment. It wasn't actually. Funny enough, it was one. Yeah, it was one of the few investment banks that I've applied for. And I had applied for, believe it or not, actually a lot of other non-financial services firms like oil companies and stuff like that, like BP, you name it. I mean, I think my sort of objective at that time was to sort of. I didn't want my summer to go wasted. And that's, again, a very important sort of a bit of advice that I would give to anyone looking for a career within financial services firm, any financial services firm, be it investment banking, wealth management, asset management, is that don't let go your, make sure you do something during your summer. So make sure you make, you use up the summer to sort of gain some career some experience, and just don't just sit there at home and stuff. Try and make the most out of the opportunity. So I think in my case, I was keen on landing anything. Doesn't matter what it was. It just so happened to be JP Morgan, and I'm so glad it did, because that's how my sort of career started within investment banking and on banking in general. That's how it all started. And had it not been for that summer internship, I would have probably not been here. I'll probably be working somewhere else and stuff. But that's just the way it is. I mean, you just have to be curious, and you just have to be able to persist and work hard. Right? That's the key.
Yeah, and the fact that you have a very successful career today, over 10 plus years across multiple firms, the fact that you persisted at a point in time when you were looking for internship, it's really all worthwhile.
Exactly, and I still remember. I mean, I keep. There's so many. I've discussed this with so many younger people these days and stuff, and I find it astonishing when people tell me that a lot of people, they apply for these positions, and naturally after a few rejections, people they don't like getting rejected and stuff, and it just has a negative impact on their on their confidence. But all I keep saying is that it only takes just that one opportunity, right? That one opportunity on the day, because you can't be perfect all the time. And trust me, I clearly remember, if I recall correctly, I think I'd applied for 30 or 40 odd different firms at the time. And just to put it in perspective, this JP Morgan was the last one. This was the last one. So I didn't make it into all of those internships. But funny enough, the one I did make it into happened to be one of the best investment banks, right? Or still is actually one of the best global investment banks out there. So I think the key is to persist and just plan ahead. I mean, that's what I say. Just make sure that you use up your summer to plan what you want to do in your career. And if you don't like it, then fine, you can move somewhere else. You can think about it. But I think the key is to sort of not to just spend that summer, or just gain a bit of experience, whichever form it may be and stuff. And you will find something that you will eventually like, and you will want to do for the rest of your career, essentially.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, right, that I've been thinking about recently is that I think we in general tend to overestimate the things that we can do in the short term, and then underestimate what we can do in the long term. Meaning, like in the short term, we want to get an internship. Oh, we want to get the best internship. We want to get into that firm. If we don't, then it's all over for us. And then we don't really think like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, like especially in your case, the fact that now 10 years later, you have a very successful career shows that you don't actually need to overweight too much on the short term. Would you agree with that?
Well, I definitely agree on that. I think a lot of the times people are so focused on the short-term goals that they forget what they can achieve long-term. So this example of mine, the one I just gave you, is a classic example where people have just a lot of these younger people have got their foot in one of these firms, and they've just spent the 15, 20 years within that firm, and then landed an MD or senior, a global MD position and stuff within the span of 15, 20 years. So it is possible, and at the same time, like you said, even if you are sort of changing firms, the point is that you almost forget what you did 10 years ago that got you here to your current position. And when I look back at my sort of career and stuff, I almost sort of at times I forget that all those little steps that I took at the beginning of my career has got me where I am. So I think it's really important that you look at the longer. Don't be too focused on the shorter goal. Focus on what you can achieve long term, But the key again is just to make sure that you persist. I mean, I use this word a lot and stuff because I know there are a lot of younger people that apply for these positions, and the environment is tough these days. And the key is to sort of make sure that you if you fail once, you try again. You fail twice, you try again, and eventually you'll get there. And once you get there, then you look back at all the steps that you took along the way, and you'll thank yourself that look, at least I sort of took that leap, right? If I hadn't, then otherwise I wouldn't be here. So you're completely right. I mean, long term is definitely helpful.
We miss all the shots that we don't take. So we have to keep trying, and we really have to persist, especially in this current situation when jobs are hard to come by and there are more job seekers per job in that sense.
Exactly, and it's definitely, the environment is definitely tougher than what it was 15 years ago. But I still remember. I mean, it was, even back then it was really tough. But now, my God, I mean, it's like on another level right now. I can imagine it must be graduates coming out of the university. They must have a really uphill task and stuff, right? When they look at the number of opportunities and the number of applicants. But again, I mean, I think the same principle applies, because the one thing I would say is right now is that you have something like the podcast that you are, for instance, you're recording. Back then, I mean, I was just a lone soldier. I didn't have anyone sort of offering me career advice or anything like that. Right now, there's so much useful material on the internet that you can sort of leverage. But I didn't have any of that back then. So to counter that argument of the fact that we don't have as many opportunities, I would probably say that, look, at least now you have more information out there. So it's only really you that can, if you're willing to sort of explore the opportunities out there or learn some of these additional skill sets, then you can do it, right? I think in my days it wasn't the case, and we really used to struggle back then. Yeah.
So right now, in your view, what do you think is the biggest opportunity in investment banking, especially with what's going on in the world right now with the coronavirus lockdowns and potentially the world might be reopening soon?
I wouldn't say investment banking. I'll probably say, let's just take any firm. It doesn't matter whether it's an investment bank or whether it's a pure technology organization or bank. The one word that you will see being mentioned a lot, and I keep going on about it a lot on a lot of these calls that I typically chair, is the word decentralized. It's a big thing right now, so especially if you're working within technology right now, which is what my background is in, or even within operations, in fact. Decentralization is a big focus right now. Long gone are the days where you would have the brokers or any of the middlemen, sort of making sure that the two sides would agree to a deal and settle on a trade and stuff like that. I think the one thing that COVID has done, in fact, is that it's given the opportunity for the banks to invest a lot more in technology than they used to back in the days. Mm-hmm. So what you will find is a lot of these banks or any organization, technical organization, are investing more in work from home equipment and that sort of stuff. So now everything is going digitized and stuff. So you don't have to sort of be physically present in the office. And at the same time, the same principle is being applied to some of these underlying technologies right now. Like, for instance, long gone are the days where you would have everything centralized within one region and stuff. Now you've got this distributed ledger technology, which and stuff like blockchain coming out in the middle and stuff, where a lot of these banks are seriously considering at the moment. And I think that this could be the next 10 years. I think this could be one area that we will see flourish a lot. So if I would probably say if I had to choose, like I said, if I had to choose one area of one area where I can see all these banks making a lot of investment in and maybe potentially changing the landscape. And I'll probably say blockchain and decentralized ledger technology is probably the one that comes to mind because, like I said, I mean, everyone, the banks want to make sure that they are able to get these trades settled on a fastest time possible, instantaneously, and then you have these technologies which are helping you reduce settlement costs and stuff like that. It doesn't, for instance, things like blockchain helps you. You don't need a clearinghouse and stuff. If you have everything on a blockchain and stuff, you can instantly settle a trade and stuff. So a lot of these banks are investing in these technologies. I know. When I mention this to some of the people and stuff, people still think that they naturally start associating blockchain and decentralized with Bitcoin, which is a bit of a shame because there's so much negative news associated with it. But the underlying technology itself is, I think, I would even probably say Internet 2.0. So if you go back to the 90s and stuff, where Internet took off and had a big influence on the world and the global economy and stuff, I think this could be the next big thing. So I think I'm really excited to see what the next 10 years turn out to be, and definitely an area I would probably advise a lot of the people to sort of learn more on. Yeah.
And so what would you do today, right, if you're starting a career right now, and knowing that blockchain is going to be a game changer for the industry in the next 10 plus years? How would you use that in your career application?
So, I mean, from a career perspective, if I'm starting off, if I'm in, I mean, a few, there are a few things I would do. So if I'm in university, for instance, right, the first thing I would do is, like I said, I mean, look for an internship or any form of work experience to begin with. I mean, that's I think in today's climate, I'll probably say that's needed more than ever, right? Back then, I mean, you could argue that I could get on a graduate scheme without an internship, right? But I think now, because you'll be up against all these other candidates, you need as much ammunition that you can gain to stand out. And having some form of work experience is really important. I can't stress this enough. And then going back to the sort of the underlying, you talked about developing skill set. I think what you should be asking, or what these students or any graduate should be asking themselves is that, what are the next 10 years? Which technologies are really going to sort of take prominence over the next 10 years and stuff? So how important is something like blockchain going to be within whether it's banking services, financial services, or technology firms? How important is it going to be? And if you're convinced, as much as I am, that look, this could be the next big thing, then you should probably be looking for courses within your university to sort of make sure that you build up on that knowledge. So when it comes to the actual job application, you can sort of stress on the fact that you've got these additional skill sets that the banks could potentially leverage. Because, like I said, I mean, if you're studying technology, for instance, and trust me, there are so many candidates that we apply for these graduate schemes. They all have more or less the same skill set in terms of the underlying courses that they have gone to take and stuff. But what stands out is what would stand out is something like blockchain, for instance, right? Decentralization, cloud computing. That's another big one, by the way. So these are some of the things that will potentially stand out, and that's what you should be investing more time in.
Yeah. So you're recommending early in careers now to take courses in blockchain and find just any work in
anything. Yeah, blockchain is just one. Skill. Anything, right? The good news is, look, you've got so much material out there. It's unbelievable how much you can learn. I would even say, as some of my, we joke about it all the time and stuff. So sometimes I even wonder whether you actually need a university degree. nowadays. And I'm not trying to sort of put people off and stuff, but this is a fact. I mean, I keep giving an example of my dad and stuff, for instance, because he's on YouTube and so learning about these things, and my dad he's a doctor and stuff, and he's learning about these technologies as well. So the point I'm trying to make is that everything is available in the public domain. You just have to go and seek that knowledge and stuff. Whereas back then, even in 2004, 2005, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there were a lot of these courses available, but I would probably say now it's gone to another level. I mean, now you could easily during summer take a like vocational course online and essentially develop a skill set that you need and stuff. So it's all there for the taking. And like I said, just make sure that you are learning something that's not being used very heavily today. So you're thinking, make sure you're thinking 10 years ahead or 15 years ahead, right? Because the first few years of your career, 5 years, is you literally trying to get to grip with what exactly is going on, with the whole work environment. It's a bit of a shock, right? When you're coming out of university, working 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, right? 5 days a week. So it always takes some time to sort of settle in. So my advice would be sort of, just make sure you develop some of those skill sets. And then once you get to that, once you are close, once you become experienced enough, then those skills that you have gained early on in your career will come in handy and stuff. So things like blockchain is definitely one that, at least in my mind, that the one I think a lot of. And given the fact that all these banks are seriously investing a lot of money in proof of concepts and stuff, just goes on to tell you a lot about the changing landscape. So I think the next 10 years are going to be really exciting with blockchain coming into the picture.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, so definitely if banks are already putting a lot of money in technology projects, change projects, probably you're working on some of them, then all the more young people who are entering the industry need to know what's going on so that they could have the knowledge of how to do it. But I'm just wondering from a job perspective, is blockchain a skill, or is it something that you can work with? Is it are there some softwares that you got to do, or is it just a general understandanding of this decentralized concept?
It's I think to start with, just bringing yourself up to speed with exactly what the underlying technology allows you to do is good enough, right? I don't think you need to be able to sort of you don't need to be a blockchain developer. But that's not to say, by the way, blockchain developers are really high in demand right now, just FYI and stuff. So you see a lot of these startups that are investing crazy amount in the smartest and brightest blockchain developers. It's a big thing right now. But look, all I'm saying is that just being familiar with the topic, right, is good enough to start with. Because the real skill set is developed once you start using that underlying technology, right? So I don't expect, anyone to sort of come out with a course on how to become a blockchain developer and being able to sort of be specialist in that area once they come out of university. But I would expect, and this is maybe me and stuff, I would expect technologists who are coming out of university right now to be able to sort of have a conversation, a decent conversation on what exactly are the benefits of decentralized ledger technologies. What does blockchain have to offer, and how can it improve some of the processes that are being used within the banks and technology firms. So that's definitely something I'll be looking out for. Like I said, there's a lot of materials on there. I can definitely share some as well, some useful links, free courses that are available.
Yeah.
So more than happy to do that.
So what is there any course that you particularly would recommend?
I mean, the one website actually I found the other day, which was quite useful, and it's available. It's called blockgeeks.com. It's a really good site, which you can sign up to. I actually found the reason why I liked it a lot was because it's blockchain for dummies. Let's just call it that way. So people who are not well versed in the topic or just trying to bring themselves, familiarize themselves with the actual topic, it's good for those people. So by all means, go to blockgeeks.com and you'll find a lot of useful training material on there. Yeah, I would definitely encourage you to sort of share that link with your audiences, or yeah, I'm sure they will find it useful. Yeah.
All right, I'll definitely link it in this video and the video description. Syed, I just want to better understand your passion about blockchain. So at what point in your career did you realize that this is going to be such a big thing that's going to shape the industry? Because you mentioned that there are some people you talk to who kind of don't really understand what this is about, and they associate it with cryptocurrencies, or they ask you, what does it mean?
So I think it's only literally over the last, I would say 9 months, where I genuinely thought that this is this is very recent. I mean, this is literally I mean, a lot of money is only being spent over the last 9 months, and I would probably say that one of the reasons why it's being done is maybe because of COVID and stuff. Like I said, people are well, not just people. I mean, all these firms and stuff are now waking up to the fact that, look, I mean, technology is good investment, decent investment in technologies, right? Helps you reduce costs. And something like blockchain, I think, especially from an investment bank's perspective or any financial services firm's perspective, has a lot to offer because it allows you to save costs. It negates the need for middlemen. Now, you could argue that some of these banks or some of these firms, financial services firms, they have a lot of their revenue built on being that middleman. But the thing is, I mean, I keep saying this, that look, if it's if the banks don't adapt themselves to these technologies or bring themselves an equal stakeholder to the party, then there are other new startups that are coming along the way that are going to sort of come up with an offer that is going to be too good to refuse for these clients and stuff. So it's almost as if what COVID has done is that, or the last 9 months, is that it's allowed the banks to reconsider their priorities and stuff. And what it's doing right now is that banks are literally starting to think more like technology firms, which is the first I've seen, by the way. To be fair, the other banks I've worked for, there are one or two that actually used to invest a lot in technologies. But it's only really now where I can easily say that all the banks across the board are really investing a lot of money, time, and resources in these technologies, and blockchain is one of them. So to answer your question, look, so I only realized this 9 months ago, and I can tell you right now that it's really picking up. Like it's next big thing right now, and people might put it a brushing under the carpet and say, look, it's all sounds too good to be true or something. You know, like I said, there's naturally an inclination to associate with Bitcoin, and I would say just do your own research, look at the underlying technologies. This is not cryptocurrencies we're talking about. I'm talking about implementing or leveraging the underlying blockchain technology to help reduce costs. And if you look at something like Blockgeeks and stuff, there's a lot of stuff on material on smart contracts and stuff like that. So that's another keyword and stuff you can look up. And smart contracts, how can you implement smart contracts and stuff like that? And that's where a lot of these banks are sort of investing a lot of money, because essentially, like I said, they're thinking more like technology firms, and they now realize that we don't need people when we don't need a lot of these people to do these manual operational sort of input entries and stuff. You can actually automate a lot of these things, and you can reduce them. You can reduce the costs associated with middlemen and that sort of stuff. So it's. I mean, I've only realized this 9 months ago, and over the 9 months, I can easily say that my belief is actually becoming more firm. I would probably say in the next 5 years, we could easily see some of these banks using blockchain to settle trades and trade financial instruments. I can definitely see that happening in the next 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using blockchains to create financial instruments.
Exactly.
I understand.
Financial instruments on blockchain. How cool would that be?
Yeah, like there are already contracts to trade Bitcoin. I understand, and there are some ETFs on that as well.
Yeah. So think about it like a financial instrument. Put Bitcoin to a side. Think about a financial instrument that could live on a blockchain. Say, for instance, a swap or something, right? A bond or any financial instrument that the bank trades. If it was able to sort of sit on a blockchain and allow people to trade and to trade on a blockchain, how useful would that be? Don't get me wrong, by the way. There's still, this is early days, right? This is like proof of concepts happening right now. So there's still a lot of maturity that needs to happen within the actual industry itself to get to the point where everyone starts adapting it. But like I said, I mean, I think the thing that's really fast tracked is COVID and stuff, because all these firms they realize that they can't operate any longer like the way they used to. They have to invest in good technologies, cloud computing, blockchain. You mentioned it and stuff. So this is what all these firms are doing right now, and one could argue that for technologists, COVID might be a blessing in disguise. I'm sorry, but that's purely from a career perspective, because this is now people are genuinely taking the underlying skills and that we bring to the table seriously right now. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Syed, for sharing about your passion about blockchain and reminding us that we need to study about this concept. Otherwise, it will be obsolete in 5 years' time.
I wouldn't say obsolete. Trust me. The one thing to bear in mind. I mean, this is just me giving pointers and stuff to give you a head start. That is not. I mean, the one thing that I would the biggest piece of advice I would give you is that nothing stays stationary, right? Everything changes, and you as an individual need to be able to adapt, right? That's another key message that I want to give out. That you should be flexible enough to realize that if you see a direction is changing, if the world is moving into a different direction, you should be able to predict which direction that's going in and be able to adapt yourself and and bring up and improve your skill set, right? So that's the key in today's world right now, because everything. I mean, the world is really changing fast, right? It's very hard to predict what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years, 20 years. But the people who have done really well are the ones who are able to predict what's going to happen, and the ones who are flexible enough to sort of realize that, look, if I don't have the skill set today, then I'm going to do something about it and improve on that skill set and take that leap of faith, right, in that area of expertise, right? So so as long as you're able to do that, I think that's the key differential. That's what's going to make you stand out from other people within some of your other peers and stuff, because you need to be able to constantly adapt. Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, change is definitely one of the things that we have to constantly adapt. And I see that I understand you manage several change projects. And in every change project, I understand that change by definition means that it's something new versus the incumbent, or versus the present, or versus the past, right? And change suggests that there would be some resistance because people will say, oh, that's what works before, right? So how do you as a program manager or as a change manager overcome those resistance, frictions, or the obstacles when it comes to change?
Well, I can tell you it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's one of the hardest things to do. What really I think helps you to sort of convey that message across to some of your stakeholders that this change that we're implementing is good for you is if you've done good preparation on the cost benefit analysis on what exactly it's going to cost and the associated benefit. If you're able to sort of communicate that to your stakeholders, then I think the stakeholders will be on board. And I think part of the problems with we have today is that communication is a big problem right now. So we tend to spend a lot of time on improving our skill sets on technologies and like we mentioned blockchain and other technologies that are being used. But sometimes we forget that the social skills at times actually do you equally as good as well as your technical skill set, but as far as your career is concerned. So one of the things that you find is that some of the most successful people are the ones who are very good communicators, right? So I think communication is really key. If you're able to sort of communicate on an ongoing basis with your stakeholders and communicate in a clear and transparent manner, then they will be on board. But the issue or challenge typically comes when you just basically throw a spanner in the works and say, look, I'm going to implement this in 6 months' time without even engaging them to begin with. So you almost have to sort of set the sort of scene, right? It's almost like you're filming a movie and stuff, and you're starting with the introduction and stuff. So you're setting the scene for what's going to happen in the future. Communication is of paramount importance. You have to be able to sort of spend time with them and be able to sort of communicate and tell them that if we implement this change, then this is how much it's going to reduce the cost later down the line. They need to be able to see the tangible benefits, and I think that's part of the problem. So I can't go into a meeting and say with all these operations is a good one because I typically work with operations a lot. I can't say that, look, if I implement this new software or this new change initiative, then it's going to reduce your cost by it's still going to reduce your cost without actually mentioning the actual specifics. So I need to be able to tell them that, look, you're going to be able to reduce your cost by 10-20%. These are the number of FTEs that we can sort of we can reduce the cost by. So you need to be able to measure the benefits in tangible terms, right? I think long gone are the days where you could just go into a meeting and say that, look, we need to do something because there's benefit associated with it. A lot of the time right now is spent on the cost benefit analysis. People want to be able to see exactly how many FTEs are you going to reduce, how many hours is it going to reduce as far as the operation process is concerned. So they want to be able to see those specific numbers, and trust me, they will hold you onto it as well once it gets delivered. So I think that's the biggest. Factor that helps you sort of communicate that across. And if you're able to do that well, then you will be able to bring your stakeholders on board.
Well, if managing change is the best advice that we need to have today, and to manage change, we need to have good communication skills, then it follows that we definitely need to work on our communication, social skills as much as we need to brush up on the technology.
Exactly, and look, I mean, I take myself as my example. I'm a bit of an introvert. I don't really. I never used to be as a child growing up. I never used to talk a lot, and I still think that I still think I'll be honest enough to say that I think communication is definitely not. I'll probably say it's not one of my strongest skill set. I'll be honest enough to say that, right? I think it's definitely an area that I can improve more on. But having said that, I think one of the things I did realize that when I was sort of spending a lot of time with some of the previous firms I was working with is how much you can improve this as a skill set, how much you can improve your communication skills through some training materials out there that are available in the public domain, being able to make up, do a presentation, that sort of stuff. So it's actually one of those skill sets that you can actually improve in. You don't, because part of the problem is that we as developers naturally get slotted with some specific skill sets. Like, okay, this guy has come in as a developer and stuff, so he's only going to be good at developing code and being able to deploy it and stuff, without actually realizing that that individual could potentially offer something different as well. So communication is really key, I would say. It's definitely something that we should invest more in, because again, going back to the point I mentioned earlier, that it's all about having the skills that's going to make you stand out. I think that's the key, right? You can't just, even if you can, you probably know a lot about some of these training courses. I'm sure you're in the graduate scheme as well, right? If I understand correctly, Andrew. So I'm sure you can relate to some of these skills or trainings that these banks are offering and stuff. And one of the reasons is that they want you to stand out. They don't want you to be sort of siloed into a specific skill set. That, okay, this individual has come up with a technology degree, so he's only good at technology. No, that's just not the way it is. So you need to be able to adapt, and you need to be able to sort of improve on some of these skill sets. And then when you put the two together, then that can come in really handy, because technology alone cannot get you where you want. You need to be able to, like I said, communicate, be good at working as a team, that sort of stuff. Everything, all those things, all those key skills help achieve your long-term ambitions.
Wow. That's a very nice message to wrap up our discussion. Besides having the hard skills to know what's the latest technology that we need to learn, we also, at the same time, must not forget the old school communication that goes all the way back to technology, communication skills, right? And it's not new. It's not a new technology, communication. In fact, it's been around for hundreds, centuries. Thank you, Syed, for making some time and imparting these very helpful words of advice, especially to young people nowadays who want to start their careers in investment banking. Very good advice.
No, and thank you for having me. And hopefully we'll catch up for coffee when this COVID is over, and then we should meet up in person and or coffee and carry on from where we left. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Syed, and I'll talk to you soon.
Speak soon, Andrew. Thanks a lot.